My name is Erica Lorraine Spencer, and I remain subject to state surveillance and terrorism by the state of California that is operating a malicious targeting system, which is referred to as federal group stalking and monitoring via communication devices. And it is in violation of federal stalking statute 18 U.S.C. sections 2261A subsections 1 and 2. My website and podcast serve the public good by publishing evidence of the public entity's ceaseless engagement in a pattern of conduct intended to stalk and monitor via communication devices, surveil, harass, and terrorize an American citizen in concert with the people of the state of California. Documentation serves the lawful purposes of wide exposure, federal prosecution, and influencing federal legislation with policies specifically designed to punish, dismantle, and disincentivize an unprecedented targeting system by a public entity that acts in concert with the people of the state in order to criminally place under surveillance and terrorize an American citizen, which is a matter of public corruption in the state of California.
It is Wednesday, March 5th, 2025 at 6:39 a.m. This is documentation of federal group stalking and monitoring, which is an egregious sex offense committed by a public entity. The public entity acts in concert with a population who are in the shoes of the government, as the evidence designates the property, meaning the distinction is shown how there is no difference, in fact, with regard to the malice where a population resides and where a police station is, for example. Speaking to the government that is gang stalking an American citizen, and the demon possession that is shared amongst the government that is acting directly and through the population that is gang stalking, for example, where the people of the state are residing at Woodside Senior Apartments. The entity is gang stalking in the same typical manner that is documented. The demon in unit number 55, license 5WB715, is gang stalking with the demon in relevant position inside of the unit amongst engineered light that's manifesting in the dark, by the way, as demonic as that amplified audible activity, and doing so with regard to obsession with me. While I'm sleeping, demons are obsessing over me. While I'm sleeping, demons are monitoring me. Demons employ magic to interrupt my sleep as well, and then pace around in the kitchen in relevant position as well, just like you see during the day under a fake sun that I'm constantly comparing has an entirely different location for the duration of the day over my head in the same way, and an entirely different region. That is what I've been comparing with what the demon in this unit, apartment number 51, the defendant Tracy Banks, who was gang stalking me with the population, and in doing so maliciously in front of the world, and also what is essentially, she's doing it in front of the feds. The entity is gang stalking me with the amplified audible activity of, this is an elderly person. These are elderly people over 55, and you have the uncharacteristic and the predictable. Okay, it's uncharacteristic, but it's highly predictable because it's the pattern of conduct of amplified audible activity amongst engineered light. Also at the venue of where the fake sun rises and sets. Don't forget about that. Don't forget about the engineered light that I've shown you that just appears out of nowhere, like you are also aware of. This is the same venue. These are the same parties who are monitoring me at 6:38 in the morning with the intent to harass as an entity that is interrupt sleep while pacing around in the kitchen where engineered light is filled, while amplified noise occurs with regard to every minor movement that I make, including the utterance of the name of the Lord Jesus Christ, which demons are hostile to. But engaging in such behavior is the creation of documentation for me to capture in order to prosecute demons who are hostile towards Christ, who is the one exposing them and prosecuting them and judging them, by the way. It is currently 6:43 a.m. This is the prosecution of AVANATH Capital Management, and this criminal interference with quiet enjoyment is the prosecution of that third-party landlord company whose property is a facilitating venue where the fake sun is rising and setting. The company or that setting, that location, is a third-party gang stalker, or like the Ontario Police Department where the fake sun is over me. That's a state facilitating venue where the entity is also gang stalking. in concert with the people of the state at a police station. And you can look at the evidence of the entity gang stalking me at the Ontario Police Department in August of 2021 with this same demon, by the way, at the 2500 Archibald in Ontario, California, where the fake sun is over the top of my head at the Ontario Police Department, not just in the morning, and not just at that building, over me for the duration of the day, traveling en route to the Ontario Police Department and back to various destinations for the duration of the day, and then back to the Ontario Police Department in the same manner in the afternoon into the evening, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock. And this is while the entity has the fake sun stationary where this same demon resides. And this is the entity that is engaging in what is monitoring me at the place of residence of this demon. So this is the same co-defendants, the Ontario Police Department and the demon possessed, that are monitoring at Woodside Senior Apartments, including in this apartment at 6:38 in the morning, criminally interfering with quiet enjoyment and doing so with malice and impunity. Very foolish conduct. Very, very foolish with regard to understanding the evidence that's going to prosecute the government for the unprecedented crime of gang stalking in furtherance, remember, of murder and kidnapping and murder for profit, okay? Trying to engage in what is essentially a calculated robbery, okay? The entity is engaging in what is the pattern of conduct with the population and is doing so, as you saw yesterday, under the fake sun and in engineered light, and doing the exact same thing, pacing around in the kitchen like nothing is happening, like no consequences are coming, like no federal raid is anticipated. Okay, that's the delusional psychopath. That is the operation, the personality of Satan, by the way. Satan that knows that he's already been told and advised about what his fate is, and Satan is very much aware of it. And Satan is a delusional psychopath that will continue until the day that Christ Jesus literally throws him to what everyone knows is his inevitable fate. That's what's pacing around me in the kitchen, okay? This is a demon-possessed person that is conspiring and has been caught and has been exposed and is witnessing a real-time prosecution before the world, and also with regard to the mental illness that is not closeted anymore, with regard to the wickedness and the evil, the malice, that is also clear, while a gang stalker over 55 that should be asleep, should still be passed out from their medication that they're taking, is up and is stalking with amplified noise that is complementing the light activity and audible activity and presence in the path inside of this unit. That is gang stalking me together with this demon inside of the unit, where engineered light and possible light activity that is appearing on the east living room wall in the dark. The fake sun has not risen yet, but this is the same address, the same location where the fake sun also rises. This is the same location where the fake sun is remaining present 9.5 hours later. And then this is the same location where the entity's pattern of conduct is identical to a pattern of conduct, including this supernatural phenomenon of an idle sun that remains over me from sunrise until sunset. And that is what I documented in March of 2024 in Los Angeles at Alvarado Gardens. This is the P.O.C, and this is documentation of prosecution for a sex offense that's committed by a government who is gang stalking you, targeting you in order to commit murder, okay? And this is the hitman herself gang stalking me where she resides, and she's doing so with the population who are also readily identified when they engage in things that I point out, such as that which is uncharacteristic, old people engaging in noise creation that's going to be loud enough to permeate through the walls and the ceilings of the apartment, creating loud booming noises like bombs are detonating, and also old people that are hurtling around, crawling around under the engineered light, under the fake sun, on walkers, okay, and in wheelchairs. But however, they have the uncanny ability to stalk with audible activity, which is occurring with simultaneity to my movements, my activity, even my thought processes, which are rapid. The simultaneity of that, that's not based on the old people that you're seeing in the physical. That's based on the demon-possessed gang stalkers who are residing around me, and their vessels are a means of what is criminal activity, because Satan made me do it is not a defense. it's the malice whereby the entity that is aware of the fact that they're demon possessed and they don't want that secret to be exposed. They're also hostile while you expose that reality and while you expose the environment that surrounds them, and they're also angry about that. That is the malice, in other words, of the demon possessed population that practices federal group stalking monitoring in California. And it does include a police department that is very thoroughly documented as well, replete with the fake sun over their police station, which is a facilitating venue. That is a crime scene, by the way. The police station is a documented crime scene where a bunch of demons, cockroaches, are exposed for what they are as I approach the venue and the supernatural is captured. Okay. It is currently, again, Wednesday, March 5th, 2025. This is documentation of criminal interference with quiet enjoyment by the demon-possessed who are 55 and older, unemployed, relying on government aid to pay their rent, while simultaneously engaged in domestic terrorism in concert with the state government, and doing so while they are engaged in what is criminal surveillance on my devices and on the venue of the internet. This is speaking to the level of malice exhibited, the impunity, where the entity is not ignorant about the fact that an American citizen is documenting, that is enforcing their rights, reporting them to the feds, blowing the whistle, however you want to characterize it. But the entity is gang stalking its own federal prosecutor in my circumstance. While I continuously give voice to what the ordinary target individual has a right to never be subject to, and has a right to enforce in any way that they can, as I've shown very common ways that any person who, you do not have to be an attorney, you don't have to be a legal scholar, as literally the groundwork for establishing precedent so that no government actor can falsely diagnose you in order to kidnap you and frame you and discard you and render illegitimate any of your documentation regarding strangers or family members or neighbors or co-workers, etc., who are gang stalking you, who are stalking you, harassing you, all right, for inexplicable, seemingly unfounded reasons, okay, doing so in a specific environment, etc. In other words, enforcing your right with regard to the P.O.C. that the state of California is practicing. All right. It is currently 6:51 a.m. This criminal interference with quiet enjoyment is for purposes of understanding the Violence Against Women Act, which this third-party landlord company is in violation of, while it's gang stalking employees and residents, and the gang stalking government itself uses the property where this third-party landlord is profiting and maintaining a business that is maliciously and simultaneously used for gang stalking an American citizen, which you don't have any constitutional right, and there is no legitimate business underway. It is all used as a means to prosecute that third-party company on that property, where you shall be prosecuted for gang stalking, where you work, where you live, where you're documented, regardless of what your relationship to that venue is. Your relationship is criminal as you engage in any of the elements of monitoring: presence, activity creation in that environment, which is how you monitor, which is how you gang stalk as a population. And doing so in furtherance of murder and kidnapping equals federal prison for everybody at WOODSIDE in units 33 through 64. And they're also going to federal prison because I'm showing you the hours in which I'm subject to psychological torture and harassment as a population, who are obsessing over my genitalia, obsessing over me as I sleep, engaging in the very, it's both psychotic, but it's also threatening with regard to the level of obsession of a bunch of demons who are salivating again over me while I'm sleeping. Just okay, it's very ordinary. We all need to do it as human beings, but it is an event because I am sleeping when I am sleeping, and the demon possessed are pacing all around me like cockroaches. And then they are hostile because I'm documenting them for gang stalking me, which is speaking to their obsession that they never wanted to be exposed. They never wanted that to be. And not only am I exposing it, it's believable and it's proven. Everything that I give voice to, everything. Okay, so the entity is engaging in a pattern of conduct and doing so at 6:30 in the morning. That's speaking to interference of quiet enjoyment. It's a criminal offense where the gang stalking venue is where a business is maintained, and where that the maintenance of that business, engagement of that business, is a means of federal group stalking and monitoring. And it is in violation of the Violence Against Women Act as well. Everybody that's gang stalking at WOODSIDE is also going to be prosecuted for stalking me under the Violence Against Women Act at a HUD regulated property which is speaking to being removed and not being able to remain at the property where the gang is stalking. So they have literally sacrificed their well-being, their while they sought to sacrifice me, by the way. I mean, that's just the exchange. That's part of the return to sender that the demon possessor are experiencing. Nonetheless, this is speaking to 34 U.S.C. 12291. The psychological torture regarding the amplified audible noise, the psychological torture, which you are witnessing again on an ongoing basis regarding the impossible light activity, and doing so while I'm also documenting it. And that's relevant to the technical abuse, the psychological torture that is inflicted as I document in order to enforce my rights. While you're stalking, you are stalking by residence. You are in violation of the Violence Against Women Act, and I will prosecute every single last one individually. And I am prosecuting the venue and everyone as the entity at the venue for gang stalking me as an entity in concert with the state. So I just want to make sure that that is clear. While at 6:30 in the morning, elderly people are gang stalking. In doing so with regard to what is monitoring my every movement, which is an egregious sex offense, because when I'm moving around and existing and being present in the bathroom and my genitalia is exposed, they're all sitting around paying attention and obsessing over that as well. And that's also the part that they don't want you to hear about. They don't want me to talk about that part. And I'm going to continuously remind you about what the government is illegitimately interested and obsessed with. All right, and that is the sex offense of an entity, and that goes into companies being prosecuted for what they are engaging in for sexual violence. You will be accountable, responsible, charged, in other words, for the damages inflicted based on your sexual engagement in federal group stalking on your sexually motivated pattern of conduct. In concert with all the sex offenders gang stalking as your employees, as your residents on your property, inside of your apartments, in other words, while you're profiting simultaneously. Be prepared for devastating damages that are designed to punish and disincentivize this very system. Okay, it is currently 6:55 a.m. on Wednesday, March 5th, 2025. This is third-party facilitating venue Woodside Senior Apartments in Ontario, California, where you saw yesterday, March 4th, 2025, the fake sun over me for the duration, over me, speaking to the evidence that everybody around me, speaking to a whole city, speaking to what the government is doing, stalking together, one person, stalking me as evidence to the supernatural occurrence of what I documented, the idle presence of a sun that is remaining present over me, defying nature in doing so. And all of their behavior in the environment that I'm capturing is also malicious, and it also defies nature because they're demons while they're stalking maliciously, and they do so on behalf of the state. The government itself is engaged in the system of federal group stalking and monitoring. This is P.O.C. It's currently 8:07 a.m. This is in reference to the sex offense that I am subject to, that I remain subject to. This is why the sex offense committed by a public entity that is gang stalking, that is engaging in what is the act of domestic terrorism, and a program, an unabated program of psychological torture is underway by the state of California. It is the perpetual sex offense committed by a public entity that is fully present without any warrant and no probable cause for no legitimate purpose, and doing so under current circumstances where the American citizen is not only aware of it, I am documenting it, and I'm going to prosecute it in order to further expose and also presenting bases of additional grounds of advocacy, speaking to things that must change based on the exposure of the government that is keeping American citizens under surveillance, and doing so in the unfathomable and unprecedented ways that I've exposed to the system. So this is the perpetual sex offense for federal group stalking monitoring based on my location, based on the nature of the venue. I'm in an apartment, and I've also documented this when I'm staying in my hotel rooms. Those are private spaces where you are engaging in the sex offense, what is inherently an unacceptable level of violation of privacy in all aspects of that. Okay, if you never even take your clothes off at any point in your hotel room or in your apartment, in your home, house, your mobile home, wherever it is that you reside, it is a sex offense based on the fact that the government is constructively present Through the engineered light, that's government presence. Through the people of the state, that's government presence, okay? And through the government itself, that's flying over you, perhaps driving on the streets around you. This becomes constructive presence where the government doesn't have a warrant to keep you under surveillance by sitting outside in front of your house at the curb in the street and maintaining surveillance, listening to all your conversations. In the same way, they have no warrant of probable cause to employ satanic methods with regard to their malicious intent to criminally defame you before they kidnap and murder you. They don't have any warrant of probable cause to commit that either. And that's the system of federal group stalking and monitoring. And they are essentially, with regard to sitting at the curb, not even at the curb, they are staying and engaging, staking you out by being in your neighbor's apartment above you and in your neighbor's apartments all around you and in the leasing office and in all of the vehicles that are patrolling all around you and in all the planes and the helicopters flying above you, and represented through all of the means of everything happening literally at the apartment complex, or change the venue at my place of work. And when I'm staying at a hotel, it is all government presence in the specific environment within the pattern of conduct that a population practices. It is a sex offense whether you ever take your clothes off or not. But we all know that in your home where you reside, in your hotel room, even in what are ordinarily referred to as public venues, this is where the government is not engaged in criminal monitoring. There is no such thing as designating a public venue or such as a police station as a state facilitating venue where you will be prosecuted for federal group stalking and monitoring where you work at the police station based on the malice of the entity that is gang stalking you conspicuously, and Satan thinking that he can do it and you can never prove it, nor can you enforce your rights under the existing laws of the Constitution. And that's a fallacy, okay? It is as farcical as what is standing under the fake sun and thinking that nobody's going to notice that, okay? Enter in the P.O.C. Okay, so you're engaging in this malicious pattern of conduct, and you're doing so intentionally and knowingly and continuously, while I, an American citizen, am documenting the sex offender, I'm documenting the stalker, and the predator continues to engage in that. All right, at what is 8:11 in the morning, where no elderly people 55 and over are asleep, and they're stalking with amplified noise while they're listening to me document. That's while evidence is being captured about their criminal conduct and their gang stalking at the venue where engineered light, which you will see framing the front door in the dark living room where all the windows are closed and the blinds are closed, and there is no sunlight nor any cloudy day that creates concentrated light on your living room wall in the form of a line on the same east living room wall where you see that same light activity where the fake sun is at, and that's also not sunlight, just a different color, in other words, of the same engineered light. This is the same apartment with this amplified booming and everybody that's 55 and older at that sort of venue where that sort of audible activity is underway, where you've seen the videos and the images of engineered light that travels across the ceiling and into the depths of the living room floor and does disappearing tricks all over the place on the walls and on the doors and into the depths of the kitchen, like through the peephole onto the kitchen wall, and sweeping across cabinets in real time as I capture that demonic occurrence, which is psychologically harmful. This is real-time psychological torture that the demons who are anticipating homelessness after I prosecute them under the Violence Against Women Act, all the demons in units 1 through 144, that is the entire property, is engaged in criminal surveillance with the government. And while the government is is being documented and is monitoring, that is interfering with the federal investigation, a federal case against itself, which no state government shall commit, but the state government is doing it. That's why the demons in units 33 through 64 who criminally interfere with quiet enjoyment for purposes of psychological torture, for purposes of monitoring while evidence is being captured, for purposes of monitoring an American citizen who was aware of it, which is the intent to psychologically harm, and doing so while a federal investigation is ongoing about their gang stalking conduct, which speaks to malice and impunity. They're all going to prison. And this is the documentation of Linda Reyes, who is indeed going to federal prison, while I am in real time documenting amplified noise inside of the apartment where people over 55 years old old who do not have the strength and the ability to create the sound of bombs detonating, who are not ignorant either about the supernatural occurrence, equally demonic, of the fake sun that remains over the apartment building where they are living around me, to engage in what is stalking and surveillance on behalf of the government that does not have any warrant or probable cause, to stake me out by being in any of the apartment buildings, by working at this venue, by coming onto the grounds of the venue where criminal surveillance is underway on a 24-hour basis. The government has no warrant to do it directly. The government has no warrant or probable cause to do it vicariously. The government has no constitutional basis to commit this under any circumstances. It is domestic terrorism, and the government is engaging in that which is unprecedented with regard to the state and federal constitutions. And the government's engaged in domestic terrorism as it is practicing demonic activity. The government does so with impunity, as I'm documenting real-time creation of amplified noise. That's representing the demons in Unit 55, license 5WUB715. This is the predator that's monitoring me with the serial killer, the hitman, Tracy Banks. Doing so while a fake sun remains over Alvarado Gardens in Los Angeles from the beginning to the end of the day. And then you're seeing where this demon, that's a violent sex offender who's monitoring what's between my legs and all of the activity that's going on in the bathroom. And that's what this predator is also aware of while the sex offender is being exposed. And she engages in what is stalking with activity, even while evidence speaking to an ongoing federal case is underway. That's obstruction of justice. That's also why she and everybody else in units 33 through 64 and the people of the state that are employed by this third-party company, AVANATH Capital Management, are going to prison. All right, and that's the entity that is, again, speaking to what the evidence supports. And that is not only the prosecution under the Violence Against Women Act, while such amplified noise is occurring inside of an apartment complex, which is interfering with quiet enjoyment for the criminal purposes of monitoring an American citizen, which is a sex offense, not just committed by this sex offender in Unit 55 and the sex offender that is Tracy Banks, but you're talking about an entity. The entire apartment complex is engaged in this sex offense together as a corrupt and perverted community that's keeping me under surveillance as one. And you also know that because a fake sun remains over this specific apartment building from the beginning until the end of the day, and engineer light and all manner of circus conduct with light, and also the amplified audible activity are the ongoing surrounding evidence which defy nature, speaking to the malice of demons who are indeed stalking by residence and place of employment. Doing so maliciously and ceaselessly is the unmistakable and mandatory basis for federal prison. Doing so again at 8:16 a.m. These are the demons. Again, the demons in Unit 41, they're going to a mental asylum, and so are the demons in Units 51 and 55. That's Tracy Banks is going to a mental asylum. The demon in Unit 55 is going to a mental asylum. All of the adults providing evidence against themselves with regard to gang stalking a woman on a 24-hour basis by place of residence, gang stalking by place of residence, and doing so while exhibiting an ongoing obsession, an unlawful and unreasonable obsession with seeking to retaliate when you are exhibiting severe mental instability. That's why all those adults are going to mental asylums as well. And those mentally unstable defendants, a part of this pool of defendants who are going to prison, they're acting with this demon all of the demons in units 49 through 64, who are the means whereby ongoing booming is heard inside of this apartment while I'm documenting on the podcast, which they're all sitting around listening to, which is federal stalking. But I want to be clear, this is the sex offense that's underway moments ago while I'm inside of the restroom and at the specific environment where the government is acting in concert with the people of the state who are going to federal prison for it at Woodside Senior Apartments. They're monitoring my genitalia between my legs. They're monitoring the private activity inside of the restroom, inside of this apartment, and they're not sleeping. When you see the fake sun rising and setting, they're up and they're salivating and worshiping and engaging in their ritualistic pattern of conduct, speaking to their mental illness as well, and their sexually perverted and sexually motivated criminal system of gang stalking me and monitoring my private parts, monitoring my private moments and all private activity inside of this apartment and specifically inside of the bathroom. And that's what's happening while I'm in the restroom, and the sound of the amplified noise while I'm surrounded by people who are 55 years and older, who are walking around on walkers. That's what you see on camera, but I'm documenting what has also been proven, the impossible light activity, which is also occurring around these old people on walkers and on canes, and the amplified noise, like bombs are detonating, like people are throwing their bodies around, like people are dropping bowling balls inside of these same apartments where they're stalking. And they're engaging in stalking while they're monitoring. And you can be at any type of property, i.e. venue, and be exposed and prosecuted for stalking based on the identification of the venue and the pattern of conduct amongst that malicious population of demons who are stalking at all places, conspicuously and inconspicuously. Okay, the government that is gang stalking directly is inconspicuously stalking me right now, while the people of the state are vicariously acting on its behalf by living at Woodside Senior Apartments and working at Woodside Senior Apartments and being on the grounds of Woodside Senior Apartments, literally even living across the street from Woodside Senior Apartments. The City of Ontario trimming the trees across the street in relevant position to Woodside Senior Apartments is the government acting inconspicuously with regard to stalking and monitoring. While the population, the demons going to prison for it, are repeatedly maintaining a course of amplified noise, criminally interfering with quiet enjoyment, doing so on a vicarious basis on behalf of the state at the specific environment where the fake sun rises and sets, where engineered light is a method of psychological torture, interfering with quiet enjoyment in doing so, threatening the life, the well-being of the target individual, communicating a sexually violent threat, letting you know, informing you that your genitalia is being kept under surveillance by the state, and doing so with impunity while an impermissible threat is communicated because the government continuously is gang stalking one who is documenting, reporting, or otherwise enforcing their rights, like I am doing with regard to the P.O.C, which the government is aware of and is literally witnessing and seeking to obstruct justice by trying to interfere with my documentation efforts, interfering with accessing to my own intellectual property, my own documentation, which is on my devices and on the venue of the internet, which is also a means of where you're monitored and where you're kept under surveillance, by the way. And that's all what the criminal entity is doing, is speaking to what you are subject to. You need to know that you don't have privacy on the internet, that you are being monitored online. It's nothing other than another venue. In other words, at venues, everybody is subject to a prosecution. Understand that. It's not freedom of speech where the government is maintaining what are the means of keeping you under surveillance. It's not what is a public property, in other words, standing on the curb where the government's maintaining surveillance. It's a venue, and you'll be prosecuted for the ways in which you're aiding that government and doing so maliciously. The malice with which you do so is also relevant to how you're going to be prosecuted. So if you like to gang stalk somebody and pace back and forth like a delusional psychopath who needs to be locked up in a padded room, then that's where you'll be going. You'll be going to a mental ward. All right, but the ordinary target individual gang stalking by place of residence is subject to federal prison. The demons that like to engage in gang stalking in the ways in which the demon in Unit 55 is exhibited, the demon in Unit 51, Tracy Banks, is exhibited, they're going to mental asylums. And they're going for enhanced terms based on the ongoing determination that is the impunity and malice and the obsession with accomplishing murdering me, because that's why they're gang stalking. And that's why Woodside Senior Apartments is gang stalking with a hitman, Tracy Banks. They're doing so in order to accomplish murder, and they continuously do so while I'm aware of the fact that they're trying to accomplish psychologically targeting me to accomplish murdering me, and they continue to engage in that with the state. That's speaking to you're not getting out of prison. You're not getting out of the mental asylum. That's what the evidence supports. And this is the sex offense that I'm subject to. The amplified booming at a senior citizen complex while I'm in the bathroom because I'm subject to the perpetual sex offense. And these same sex offenders who are all getting locked up in units 33 through 64 are also getting locked up while they are maintaining elements of monitoring, amplifying loud noise, while they are indiscriminate with regard to the sexual violence that they are inflicting upon one that is not only aware of it, I'm documenting it. That's speaking to predators, sex offenders who are a threat to children. They're a threat to the public, anyone, okay? Because this level of impunity toward the federal government, toward a federal prosecution, and you're still engaging in what is sexual violence in a manner that someone is aware of in order to document, and you're witnessing your exposure in real time, and you're still doing it, those are the people that are getting locked up and they're not getting out. And then they're going to stand in federal court and look perplexed, start crying, start making up legally irrelevant claims that no one is going to hear, and they're going to federal prison. They're going to the mental asylum, like they heard before when they failed to take heed about what they continuously engaged in. And nor is the government that's being prosecuted Gang stalking with them is going to be incapable of helping them. In fact, the government has incriminated them. The government placed them right in the bull's eye while I captured the state gang stalking me. And I stated a long time ago, I'm going to prosecute the population who are the demon-possessed people of the state. Gang stalking, and that's exactly what Woodside Senior Apartments is as a third-party company. AVANATH Capital Management is a sex offender monitoring my genitalia in a bathroom inside of its apartments. And they're going to be prosecuted as a company for that unprecedented sex offense while they're making money off of sexual violence. They're also going to be prosecuted for engaging in the unabated program of psychological torture while they're stalking an occupant in its apartments with the government, with its residents, acting with impunity, while in real time I'm capturing it on the podcast. And those are the sex offenders who are indeed going to prison and in mental asylums. The demon in unit number 55, 5WUB715. This demon is not strong enough to create the sound of bombs detonating, to create loud booms. This is a third party that is readily identifiable as a stalker, not only based on the amplification of that audible noise, which is interfering with quiet enjoyment. It is happening amongst the impossible light activity. It's happening at the venue where the sun rises and sets. That's reference to the specific environment where the fake sun is identified and criminal surveillance by the government is shown and revealed. And the malice is speaking to federal prison for all those physically surrounding me in units 33 through 64. And they're going to federal prison for the sexual violence that I'm documenting now, the impunity that I'm capturing even in this excerpt of the documentation where amplified noise is coexisting with my capturing the evidence to put the same defendants in prison. They belong in prison. And they are not deterred, meaning terrorists that go around blowing up buildings and murdering people are not deterred by the federal government prosecuting them and telling them about laws, speaking to, you can't do this and you're not going to get away with this. And they persist on arming themselves with bombs on their bodies and walking into buildings and blowing people up, murdering. They're committed to it. They're determined to it. They are determined to continuously do it. That's impunity and malice that will not be tolerated likewise with regard to federal group stalking and monitoring in furtherance of murdering American citizens. As a population, making money off of it, profiting it, engaging in their satanic, ritualistic, their celebrations regarding getting away with secretly murdering someone and gaining some sort of prize from Satan. The prize that the people that stayed at Woodside Senior Apartments is getting is a prosecution of the Violence Against Women Act. That's going to remove each and every one of them from their apartments while I'm documenting them and they're giving me evidence to prosecute them for it. The prize is federal prison for the people of the state employed by AVANATH Capital Management. The prize is federal prison and mental asylums for the defendants living in units 33 through 64. So this is documentation of the perpetual sex offense. You will see the images uploaded to the Google Drive as well with regard to what's my environment around while I am subject to amplified audible noise inside of the apartment. And what I'm doing and where I'm at is always legally relevant. In other words, the type of venue. When I am at the Ovid Family Community Library and I'm sitting at the computers and the entity is stalking with amplified helicopter, that is still criminal monitoring and you're documenting it. It is the entity that's engaging in what is the pattern of conduct of psychological torture. However, you are understanding that's not the aspect of the perpetual sex offense. When I'm walking in the library and sitting at the computer lab and all of a sudden impossible light activity is touching any part of my body with regard to the demons who are obsessed with touching my person, violating my person, molesting my person, then you're getting into the perpetual sex offense grounds with regard to federal group stalking and monitoring, which is an egregious sex offense. Understand where I'm at and what I'm doing is relevant to how you're going to prosecute the demon possessed who maintain a pattern of conduct with regard to keeping you under surveillance, which is a sex offense. Okay, this is P.O.C. and this is AVANATH Capital Management that's going to be prosecuted for monitoring my genitalia while it's stalking me as a corrupt company inside of a bathroom. And that's speaking to unprecedented damages. I'm going to tell you right now, it's unprecedented damages. It is 8:26 a.m. This is P.O.C. All right, it is currently 8:39 a.m. This is again units 33 through 64 who are stalking with amplified noise and repeatedly engaging in it. This is relevant to the severity of the impunity and the psychological torture of the entity that is gang stalking by residents. These are the demons that are going to federal prison and going to mental asylums at 8:39 a.m. amplified noise. Remember what I was documenting yesterday while 6:39 a.m. engineered light was sweeping across east and west across her living room ceiling, Tracy Banks' living room ceiling. That's a means of monitoring, and so is the amplified noise. They're both means of psychological torture, and this is the ongoing engagement in that with impunity. That's why they are going to prison, as I'm documenting it, because AVANATH Capital Management is being prosecuted as well, civilly and criminally. 8:40 a.m. This is P.O.C. It is currently 9:49 a.m. on Wednesday, March 5th, 2025. And the following documentation is with regard to the pattern of conduct that is underway on the internet, as well as in relevant position where I remain at the facilitating venue, Woodside Senior Apartments, where engineered light is glowing golden and then going back to gray. And this is, again, with regard to impossible light activity that's pursuant to real-time monitoring that I remain subject to. And the entity that is continuously gang stalking with impunity is also how you are identifying that and prosecuting it, while I'm also identifying the defendants who are going to federal prison. They're also going to federal prison and mental asylums for the impunity that is also evident through the ongoing federal stalking. This is the surveillance underway on my devices on the internet with the intent to obstruct justice. And it is I will document. I'm documenting it here on the podcast, and I'm also going to document it, which you can experience if you go to the website at the P.O.C. website, which is the POC.wordpress.com, where the state of California is very much fearful of the truth that I'm speaking. It's very much aware of the fact that I suffer no mental instability whatsoever, while the entity goes to the extent to engage in federal stalking for the purposes of disabling, that is manipulating the internet ability to access my accounts, which I've documented before. This is what Los Angeles did. Alvarado Gardens, those demons are going to federal prison at Alvarado Gardens for not just gang stalking by living at a venue, and where they're living, they're acting with the government that acts directly and all the population that comes to just join them and gang stalking me on the property and all around the property. Okay, so you're going to federal prison because you're maintaining your post 24 hours a day, helping the state. And the people who do that go to prison, and you do that while you work at that address as well, and it's not going to be limited to your work schedule. Oh, I wasn't at work on Saturday night when LAPD was flying circles over the targeted individual. You're going to prison as an employee at the facilitating venue. All right. They're also going to prison based on the impunity and the malice and the intent to obstruct justice, which I'm documenting here, based on the February 4. It looks like the links are my access to my Google accounts, rather, speaking to suspicious. These are the pop-ups with regard to the entity that monitors on devices. The entity is able to interfere with your access to accounts. For example, after you access something, after you put in your login, your passwords and whatnot, after you use it, like I'm doing, and uploading. Say you're uploading pictures to the drive for whatever, I'm documenting. So that's the specific activity that I'm engaging in, and it's legally relevant what I'm doing and what's the entity's criminal purpose in engaging in federal stalking, based on the fact already adding to the fact that you're engaged in federal stalking. So there is no other person that's accessing my Google accounts. The entity is criminally monitoring on the internet. Google is providing a superficial bases of blocking access to such accounts by stating these things I've already captured in screenshots. This is the same POC. So it says that, oh, we've have identified suspicious activity on your account. There's nothing suspicious regarding only my being the person that's accessing my account. And the only thing that's suspicious is that the state of California and the demons who are monitoring the evidence are also monitoring on communication devices on the internet, and they are the ones that are interfering with the operation, and you're accessing to accounts that while they're monitoring you online. In other words, that's what renders, quote unquote, that which is suspicious, but it's also a superficial obstacle. There are many ways in which I've navigated around that, circumvented these superficial means of trying to block me from accessing an account or whatnot. But I want to be clear, it has also been an unlawful basis speaking to prison. Why? Because there's an ongoing federal investigation, an ongoing existent case. And no Unabomber, no domestic terrorist is going to circumvent that prosecution by destroying evidence. No one would stand in court and tell the federal judge, and in the midst of that federal prosecution, oh, well, we're not doing this. I'm not listening to you, and disregarding federal law, disregarding the prosecution as though it's not happening, as though it's illegitimate, as though the state court, which is, not the state court, but the state itself is superior to the federal government's jurisdiction to prosecute the states for domestic terrorism. That's not the reality. That's not how the system operates. But this is what the government is doing while it's monitoring me on my devices on the internet while I'm in the process of documentation that is evidence against the state, that is impeding upon that investigation with the intent to obstruct justice, knowing that an American citizen that it is actively seeking to murder and kidnap is documenting it, publishing it on the internet, and interfering with access to that evidence that's already published to the world. And you can also see that after I have provided that access, it has been not by myself blocked. Okay, so if you access the links that I did, and I'm going to document this because the entity is going to federal prison, and I will also provide the means to access the same documentation. But the demons that are at Woodside Senior Apartments, Linda Reyes is going to federal prison for federal stalking with the intent to obstruct justice. These are the harmful effects, results of the gang stalking entity monitoring you on the internet and online. And it is not going to be based on Linda Reyes saying, well, I don't know anything about technology. I can't do anything from my cell phone. I don't even know about the so-called targeted individual's website or whatever you're talking about. I didn't even know that the targeted individual was living in apartment 51, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's legally irrelevant. The entity is gang stalking as one. The entity does not need to admit to my presence, does not have to admit to knowledge of my presence. The specific environment establishes knowledge and intent. It is within a pattern of conduct, and you are acting as an entity. The entity's engagement in a pattern of conduct committed corporately, committed as a group, is also established, and you will never get the truth out of the mouth of demons. But secondly, and I want to be clear, the entity is monitoring on devices, which I've also shown, the simultaneity of activity, the impossible light activity that you're witnessing is speaking to surveillance on devices. The monitoring conduct that's occurring on the internet, the simultaneity of amplified noise monitoring me, psychologically harming me with that which I'm accessing online, with what I'm doing online, with what I'm doing on devices. This is relevant to that which is unlawful under Title 18, Section 2261A, subsections 1 and 2. And it is under the language of that statute speaking to that which is intended to keep one under surveillance. And that's what the entity is doing while it's gang stalking me physically, stalking me everywhere I go as a population, as an entity, and also maintaining surveillance of everything I'm doing on my devices and on the internet, which I've also documented within that which is within the pattern of conduct, very fully exposed and documented. While the Ontario Police Department are stalking me with amplified helicopter activity, with simultaneity to me accessing video documentation of the Ontario Police Department gang stalking me on October 9th, 2024, that is not an anomaly. That is speaking to a well-documented pattern of conduct. What the entity is doing with regard to gang stalking, psychologically harming me physically, is that which they are inherently aware of. You're necessarily aware of, not coincidentally, not an ongoing randomness that I just happen to be lucky, unfortunate. And every time I do something on the internet, it just so happens to coexist with the creation of that which is impossible to occur also. Engineer light shooting across on appearing and disappearing on the floor and shooting like lasers all inside of this apartment, while a fake sun sits idle all day long over the apartment building, while things such as the government that I'm also documenting, that on the one hand wants to appear as, and it doesn't, something disconnected, separate from me, having nothing to do with me, and it has everything to do with me within that pattern of conduct and that which the entity knows I'm doing online. That is, while you know what I'm doing online, you're interfering with what is private, because you don't have a warrant of probable cause to keep me under surveillance on the internet either, which is what the entity is doing. And they also do this with pursuant to blocking what are the access to my accounts, where I'm the only one physically accessing my accounts. My devices are the only ones that you'll see in the Google history. I've already documented this before, but I'm reciting that which is within the P.O.C. of federal stalking, Title 18, okay? And this is with the intent to obstruct justice. This is also why the entity is going to federal prison. And not only am I documenting this, not only is everyone going to prison for this, the state of California, every business is engaged in federal stalking. Everybody has a cell phone. Everybody uses laptops. All of your televisions, well, most of them are now created and sold to you with the ability to access internet. They are communication devices, where a means of surveillance, meaning not necessarily even using it for internet. The use of surveillance is also with regard to a method of creating activity where you're being monitored inside of your home. Remember, the television turning on and off, the audio turning on and off, the operation, or what you would ignorantly refer to as an abrupt malfunction, is used to monitor you. That is relevant to surveillance as well, okay? But it's also relevant to surveillance that's occurring on the venue of the internet online. This is occurring with regard to the entity that does not want evidence about itself to be published. Okay, so what I'm seeing is blockage to my accounts, which is accessible, meaning you can access the evidence of what is obstruction of justice. While you can't see those links, I have not blocked your access to those links. These are federal crimes that the entity is going to federal prison for. That the government, that the gang stalking police department and the gang stalking police officers are going to be prosecuted for. Okay, these are not malfunctions. I'm not engaged in any chicanery with my evidence. This ongoing investigation is seamlessly underway, but for the federal stalking of the entity that's keeping me under surveillance on the internet and on all my devices, and ceaselessly engaged in acts of obstruction, trying to block access to you because they know that I'm speaking the truth, by the way, about everything that I expose about them. Everything. And by the way, while they do that, they're admittedly gang stalking me, because my little old website that has not gone viral, that I'm not telling anybody else about, I'm not standing out there on a megaphone, everyone look at my website, everyone go to thisisthepoc.wordpress.com, while they're all acting oblivious to the fake sun and the helicopter activity like nothing is going on, nothing to see here, folks. But you are also aware of, in the same way that you are, while a demon keeps their back to me, an engineered light moves across the sidewalk while they're under the fake sun gang stalking me, in the same way while they're engaging in obstruction of justice on the venue of the internet, blocking access to my evidence that's published online, which they should not ordinarily be, they shouldn't be aware of it. What is bringing their attention to it? Who is Googling federal group stalking and monitoring? Who's Googling the P.O.C.? Okay, this is the entity that is aware of what's being published about it, and they're going to prison. It's an ongoing admission to the very allegations that are already supported by evidence. It's the pattern of conduct, and I'm going to publish again the evidence that the entity seeks to obstruct your access to, and they're going to prison for that. So I want to add this to the podcast today. This is what the company AVANATH Capital Management, who is gang stalking me, is also going to be prosecuted for: obstruction of justice, federal stalking. Federal stalking is an unlawful act of surveillance and stalking under the Violence Against Women Act as well. This company, the residents of Woodside, the employees of Woodside, the people of the state, in other words, and the entity that's gang stalking directly by the government, and the entity that's gang stalking by the people who come onto the grounds and who surround the grounds, creating activity, monitoring me, are being prosecuted for criminal interference with quiet enjoyment while they're gang stalking with the residents and the employees and the company AVANATH Capital Management. All right, it is currently 10:01 a.m. on still the same day, Wednesday, March 5th, 2025. This is P.O.C. I want to make sure that you're aware. So the dates that are inaccessible with regard to going to the website to select the links where you can see the body of evidence that was captured for the totality of the day. I believe it is February 9th, 2025, folder 1, because February 9th, 2025 has two folders, _1 and _2. So it is, so it's February 9th, 2025, folder 2 through February 16th, 2025. So that's the 9th, the 10th, 11th, the 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th. That's 8 days of evidence. All right. The video evidence is accessible on the YouTube channel still. The entity is concerned about the body of evidence. The entity is not avoiding prosecution. I'm even going to prosecute for the ways in which they tried to cover up the crime. And this is why they want to murder somebody. You're going to prison for this. Okay. Substantial damages. It's 10:02 a.m. This is P.O.C. All right, the entity maintaining what is means of psychologically targeting me by filling the apartment with amplified noise while they're monitoring. This is the federal offense of federal stalking that they're engaging in, which inspires the terrorism via amplified noise. So this is the entity that's engaged in an ongoing admission that they're gang stalking, that they're demon possessed, and that they're sex offenders, and that they're acting with the intent to obstruct justice by psychologically harming, inflicting harm, criminally interfering with quiet enjoyment in doing so, the one whom they're keeping under surveillance on the internet and on the devices. This is the entity that is AVANATH Capital Management. This is the entity that is AVANATH Capital Management's employees, including Linda Reyes. This is AVANATH Capital Management in concert with the entity that is residing at the venue, and all 144 units. This is the entity that is going to federal prison. The people of the state that are employed by AVANATH Capital Management and at this venue, and the entity that's gang stalking, criminally interfering with quiet enjoyment in units 33 through 64. It is currently 12 p.m. and the entity is doing so while I am uploading the evidence that it sought to obstruct access to. And that's, again, the federal government, that the state government is trying to block the feds' ability to access evidence against itself. That's also why they're going to prison, and they continuously engage in what is the federal offense, which is also a sex offense at the same time that they're committing monitoring inside of an apartment, and admittedly speaking to the fact that they're stalking in violation of the Violence Against Women Act. What it is that I'm speaking to, I am pointing out all the ways in which the entity is being prosecuted and continuously is providing evidence against itself, speaking to the impunity and everything that it deserves. That they deserve to lose the housing that they currently are enjoying, the housing benefits that they currently enjoy while they're gang stalking. They deserve to be removed from the venue where they are engaging in domestic terrorism and stalking a woman, engaging in a sex offense in doing so, and show an absolute disregard while they are openly shamed for it and subject to not just being embarrassed, but being prosecuted, and they persist in that sex offense in violation of another person for no legitimate reason, no purpose whatsoever, other than to aid this witch, Tracy Banks, who is a hitman who wants to murder me just because I am who I am. And also they're doing it, in other words, in furtherance of murder and kidnapping, which is what the state of California, the city of Ontario, routinely practices. These, again, criminals, these predators, these psychopaths belong in federal prison where they're going, okay? They're doing so while I am publishing evidence onto the internet after the entity sought to obstruct your ability to access, the Fed's ability to access. And again, I'm advocating on behalf of the ordinary target individual. The federal government and the federal government's knowledge and the case against the state is established. The entity is being watched in real time while they are being shown to be the very predators that I allege before the feds were ignorant about what it is that I've been stating for years, before they were falsely and unjustly looking at me as though I would, under any circumstances, do something, could be capable, or that any American citizen does something that warrants what the government is doing to me. But nonetheless, when this ignorance subsides, the entity is now being watched while it is targeting me. And I'm speaking to all the ways in which justice requires that it be prosecuted comprehensively. Okay? In obstruction of justice by engagement in federal stalking, and they like to engage in stalking with noise in doing so in order to psychologically harm, you're targeting somebody that is testifying against you in federal court, that is presenting evidence against you in federal court, that is literally prosecuting you. Not only in the court of public opinion, which is necessary, by the way, when the government is gang stalking you. The court of public opinion becomes relevant, not like the ordinary prosecution of an American citizen for a crime which they have a right to confront their accuser under the Sixth Amendment, and you're innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. Yes, that still applies, but the government that's engaged in federal group stalking and monitoring is also being prosecuted, convicted in the court of public opinion, and it is also going to be subject to a federal prosecution in a court of law. All right, and this amplified audible activity is occurring while the demons are hostile because I am putting back the evidence that it removed from public access, which is a very serious federal offense. And while the government engaged in terrorism wants to block the feds and the world from knowing that it's terrorizing an American citizen, and then is hostile to that and engages in what is a method of psychological torture. Okay, while the entity that's living in units 33 through 65, it's clearly known who is engaging in it and what they're doing and what is being accomplished while they do so, which is under all circumstances very obvious and clear criminal conduct, because the specific environment is speaking to where the government has no right to keep you under surveillance through people that live there, even under a lease agreement, which is nothing other than malice. It's a crime for you to be here, period. And while you're loudly monitoring me, you're admitting me, put me in prison. That's the entity that's monitoring my uploading evidence back onto the internet for your access. And you can look at all the evidence that the entity, make sure you look at it again, take a good gander at it, because that's what the entity doesn't want you to see. Everybody that's documented in this evidence that's going to be fully exposed as being removed with the intent to obstruct justice, the entity that's documented, that's the entity that seeks to obstruct justice. And so if I documented you speaking to federal prison, you're going to prison for even longer. The documentation of obstruction of justice is going to intensify, enhance whatever it is that is the consequence for your engagement in federal group stalking and monitoring, if it doesn't already include prison. Okay, if it includes prison already, you're going to be in prison for even longer. This is how the government's intention to obstruct justice at all causes, which is its pattern of conduct, is going to serve to prosecute itself, to provide what is an automatic penalty that's built into what the corrupt government practices. All right, it is currently 12:05 p.m. where amplified audible activity is remaining inside of an apartment as a means of just monitoring me, harassing me, terrorizing me, retaliating against me, while you're stalking and spying and monitoring, being sex offenders. P.O.C. All right, it's still Wednesday, March 5th, 2025, and this is ongoing documentation regarding the maintenance of a chorus of amplified noises that center inside of the unit with regard to not just merely interfering with what should be, especially at also a senior citizen complex. Okay, this is again pointing out just the common sense aspect regarding what the government is doing, gang stalking, but also with regard to the maintenance of audible activity that is amplified in character. And that amplified noise is speaking to that which is louder than it is naturally going to be. And I have demonstrated that throughout the duration of time that I've been documenting the pattern of conduct. The entity engaging in what is amplified audible activity, sensational activity, these are means of identifying that you're being targeted. Okay, so the entity is also identified as targeting you when the activity occurs with simultaneity, immediately following whatever it is that the targeted individual, the person who's being targeted, is doing, whether that be on a communication device or whether that be literally a physical movement. As again, one who is documenting and exposing demon-possessed people and also criminal activity, which also embarrasses them. This is speaking to knowledge of right and wrong, by the way. This is speaking to knowledge regarding an intent and a purpose and a desire to maliciously engage in and to secretly engage in a pattern of conduct that I am exposing when you are embarrassed. And that embarrassment is witnessed when the entity engages in the gang stalking via amplified noise as I consume any content on the internet that is triggering to the demon possessed. For example, if I watch a movie that's about a mentally ill woman, that's a mother who trafficked her own daughter, or who engaged in what is having sex with all of her daughter's friends and would-be boyfriends. They never maintain any romantic relationship with that woman's daughter because she would stalk her daughter obsessively, unbeknownst to the daughter, and that mother would sexually pursue, romantically pursue the young men in her daughter's life. And this was something that none of those young men ever told the daughter about her mother. Okay, and this is something that the mother practices. When I watch triggering content with these storylines, when I watch things about the federal government, the feds raiding, completing a raid at a property in order for a lot of people to be arrested, and order things such as a federal prosecution for what is again a matter of what is a prosecution of a large amount of people, when things such as secret marriages that have been fraudulently created for a criminal purpose within an overall criminal scheme, where there's a fraudulent person in a relationship with another, having some sort of malicious purpose toward another, and that family member, or that in that relationship, there's one person that's ignorant about it, and there's another that is feigning loving that person, or feigning caring about that person, or feigning having that person's interest in their best interest in mind. When I view these triggering things, which I've documented as I watch a YouTube video, the demons that are not ignorant about what the hitman is engaging in, about what the hitman's interests are, about the criminal acts that the hitman has committed. By the way, the hitman acts as an entity. This is the criminal acts that the entity have committed. The entity will engage in amplified audible activity creation. That is, by the way, psychological torture that the entity is committing. And the entity is living at an apartment complex, and that entire apartment complex is being prosecuted. Okay, so this is speaking to, again, stalkers that are monitoring every aspect regarding internet content, regarding use of my devices, the fact that I'm documenting and exposing the entity whose wicked conduct is embarrassing to them, and it's triggering to them, especially when they are fearful of things that I consume online, that it literally triggers them. And it is initiated. Also, when I when I reference the name Christ Jesus, it's triggering to demons who are hostile. These are demon-possessed people. And amplified audible activity. This is the nature of the crime. It is demonic, and it's also speaking to, again, the demon-possessed are always admitting what they're doing. Okay, all I'm giving you is, not only am I prosecuting, I'm literally translating what these demons are admitting on an ongoing basis while they engage in the pattern of conduct that I have literally broken down for you. Pursuant to that, I do want to document, because I did maintain a list. This ongoing amplified noise, this ongoing stalking with light conduct is relevant to psychological torture, and the entity that engaged in interruption of sleep. This is the intent to harass, to just bother, psychologically harm, just because you are just mad that I'm sleeping and you can't sleep, okay? Because you're too haunted by what you know is coming for you, because you're fearful of the evidence against you, while, again, you're looking on video and images of psychopaths who must maintain an outward demeanor of being ignorant about their being documented. They struggle with that, by the way. They struggle with wanting to both at the same time be somebody, oh, I'm not gang stalking you, and at the same time, since you're not gang stalking me, then you're also not aware that you're being documented. Okay, they don't understand how their malice goes both ways. You're not gang stalking me, yeah, and I'm not documenting you. Why are you so paranoid about what I'm doing with my phone, and I'm not harassing you about what you're doing with your phone? Because there's no gang stalking going on here, right? Yeah, there's no demons around these parts, right? Okay, and this is how I'm always surrounding the demons, with what is their guilty conscience, with what is their, again, they're very highly unintelligent. And that's also clearly shown when the ways in which I have surrounded them with laws. And with analysis, legal analysis, logic, in prosecuting a demonic system that's designed to psychologically harm someone, and also essentially result in what is murdering somebody, kidnapping someone. And the demon possessed are a bunch of uneducated or educated. They're a bunch of unemployed, unprofessional, or professional, and trained in some profession or whatnot. Speaking to any class, but most of the time you're dealing with what are low lives, and this is, again, a lot of things that people are deceived by. You think that you cannot be a low life or a loser, as it would be termed ordinarily, or unsuccessful because you have a PhD in English, and you teach nights at the community college, and you have 2.5 kids with your husband or your wife who you're married to, who has an MD, and you're gang stalking, living by the target individual, and a fake sun remains over your home all day long. And you are also at the same time a predator, a sex offender who has custody of children, by the way, while you live a whole malicious existence. It's fraudulent, actually, what the demon possessed are capable of accomplishing in the physical, and what they're concealing in the spiritual, and also what they're also concealing in the physical, the fact that they're engaging in the system of federal group stalking and monitoring. And it is irrespective of whatever education level. But I'm going to be honest, I am encountering a lot of uneducated, unsophisticated, unintelligent, unequipped, okay, just Neanderthalic, all right, and nothing other than a lot of thugs, a lot of bullies that don't have a lot of intellectual capability. They rely on just brute strength. They rely on criminal activity. They rely on intimidation tactics of somebody that's in a position where they're outnumbered, okay, where they are fear-stricken, and that just doesn't work. And I find it particularly pathetic. That's exactly what I'm speaking to. And I'm also prosecuting that bullying system and showing that the measure of success is not your physical appearance, first of all, because a lot of times you can buy your appearance, by the way. And are you successful as a person when you're buying your appearance? Speaking to, I guess you don't like your natural appearance. Is that success, that you're buying another appearance? And again, this is not rendering out judgment. This is food for thought. Okay, the way that people are measuring success, the way that you are conditioned to view or assess success as a person, okay, or in your life, or these are all superficial things, and all of these things are going to burn. These are low lives. They're sex offenders. They're predators. They're murderers and kidnappers. They are criminals. They're barbarians. And none of this is exaggerating. You have an apartment complex, speaking to what the state is doing, an apartment complex of people who are over 55 years old at this advanced age, and their focus is on me inside of this apartment on all day and all night. Every move I make, The moment that I take headphones off, oh, this is the mindset of a loser. This is an unsuccessful human being who needs Christ Jesus, because it's Satan that drags human beings to such low depths. The moment that a demon knows that I've taken my headphones off and I'm not listening to content, this is the moment I've been waiting for. So now amplified noise, in order to let the federal prosecutor document you in order to further expose the fact that you're stalking where you live, which is entirely pathetic. So there's a degree to which I'm both prosecuting and I'm literally scrutinizing the level of how sad this reality is. And these are government officials, public officials that are living this lifestyle in California. I am documenting the mayors who live in the state of California. I am documenting the county sheriffs who live in the state of California. I am documenting there's a governor that lives in the state of California. There is a chief of police, not just this demon in Ontario. This is what they are doing throughout the state of California. It's not just the unemployed, elderly who do not have anything else to do, clearly, with their lives and have not done anything even at this point. You're gang stalking and you're over 55 and you're waiting for the moment that amplified noise can be heard, because I am literally the focus of your entire universe, which is also shown through a whole fake sun that remains over your apartment building because you're stalking me, a demon, and a whole community of them. Okay, that's very, very sad. It's tragic. And this is the reality, but nonetheless, there is a way to address it. And I want to be clear, as you can hear, very unapologetically shaming the wicked. Okay, and let me be clear, they are very much shamed while they engage in what are federal offenses, a documentation of criminal acts of retaliation, an ongoing admission that you are indeed a stalker, and monitoring where you reside, where you're visiting, where you're in relevant position. In other words, it's speaking to the prosecution of the whole city, that the entity is doing nothing other than prosecuting and exposing itself. This is judgment. There is no getting out of that. They continuously embarrass themselves. They continuously expose themselves. They continuously harm their own interests, because this is going into a court where people will not have any legal arguments. There will be no avoiding the penalties that they were warned about before they met that fate. Okay, so I just want to preface my documentation with all of that. The entity is indeed engaged in surveillance, and this is the third-party company, AVANATH Capital Management. So at 1:45 p.m., I am engaged in movement because I'm a human being. I'm inside of an apartment building. So while I'm living and existing and having my being and minding my business, and my business is also to prosecute a bunch of demon-possessed gang members who sought to conspire my murder and steal all of my money, my property, rob me of my reputation in doing so. Okay, so with that, it is absolutely my business to prosecute these terrorists. And while I'm walking around inside of the apartment in the kitchen at around 1:45 p.m., this is where the same stalker, the terrorist in unit number 55, who is acting as an entity. The ongoing amplified booming is heard inside of the apartment. This is the only unit that's above me. Okay, this is not noise that is naturally occurring either. But the entity that is living around you is the entity that is stalking you, while amplified methods of noise is maintained centered around me inside of the apartment, and it is demonic, and the stalkers are going to be prosecuted for it. They're not present under a fake sun that nobody is suspicious under. Like it's just there and doesn't have anything to do with me. Like you see this hitman pacing around on video and in images in her apartment. You see the demonic that defies science, logic, common sense. It's very creepy. While you see the engineer light traveling across her ceiling, down her bedroom walls, and you see shade outside of her window, and you see this demon yawning and stretching. This is a witch. This is a psychopath. This is a hitman, a serial killer. That is, again, a very poor actress, okay? And that is caught red-handed, but has never been caught to this degree, never been exposed to this degree, and doesn't know anything to do other than continue acting like nothing is happening. Okay, nothing to see here, folks, and it's not persuasive. It's so that you can witness mental illness, okay, of a psychopath. So this is the entity that is gang stalking in these manners, and you are directly implicated in federal group stalking and monitoring, and there's no legal There is no legal argument nor defense. It's an entity that's engaging in it through a population, irrespective of specific or personal identity or relation. And there is no exclusion from it either. And also the evidence supports that. You are engaging in activity creation, period. Nor can anyone after this prosecution claim ignorance. And so if you don't want to be a part of a federal prosecution, I suggest you pack up and move immediately. Because when you're documented, that's it. Okay. And what is that? The reality is that the demon possessed have been terrorizing American citizens and don't have any intelligent, logical, actual, or persuasive or reasonable basis to feign ignorance about the terrorism that a target individual is subject to, which is no matter of merely existing in their imagination while you're looking at the supernatural environment that surrounds. Nobody is ignorant surrounding that target individual that is speaking to harassment, that's speaking to methods of psychological torture, that's speaking to stalking. They are not, under any circumstances, ignorant about it. And so now when the demon possessed are caught, they all just walk around whistling, looking to the left and right, keeping their back to you while they are still stalking. Now you more clearly can see the mental illness that was always there. Okay. The entity is the mental illness that the entity that's gang stalking suffers. And I want to be clear, mental illness, as I'm exposing it, I'm saying exactly what I mean. Mental illness is much more pervasive and popular than is, I would say, actually exemplified and discussed. And not mental illness with regard to trying to curse people who suffer no mental illness, like myself, by the way. I have the ability to feel remorse for another person. I have what is empathy for other people who are suffering. I have no desire in my heart, nor do I derive pleasure, and nor am I gratified from watching another person suffer in any way. I'm also not obsessed with even revenge. And that's, again, I am a follower of Christ Jesus, and it is not my job to seek revenge for anyone. And that is, Scripture says that vengeance is mine, I will repay, says the Lord. Okay, so and that's just based on how I live my life. But not only that, even someone that, like this hitman, this demon is obsessed with me and is an entire psychopath that is failing miserably at wanting to maintain what no one believes, and she doesn't believe it, nor do any of her personalities believe it, that she is persuading anybody that you're doing anything other than stalking me on an ongoing basis. While she goes to the bathroom and uses the restroom, she is stalking and monitoring me. Okay, she will, in other words, not flush the toilet, not wash her hands, run out in order to engage in whatever element needs to be satisfied. That it's all about me, and that's exactly what I mean. The entity is engaging in what is obsessively monitoring and stalking me. It is the deprivation of one's self and identity and life and value, and it is an entire obsessive focus on the target individual, and that is myself, and that is what the demon-possessed practice. And so this is the reality of this hitman who is this is a demon-possessed person who's masquerading as a mom, and doing so while she is experiencing an ongoing progressive public exposure, which is preceding an inevitable prosecution for that which she's engaging in, not just with the government, not with just the demons and the companies that represent the state of California, but every relative. Everybody that acted with her, it's already on record what they've committed in the courts, the lies that they have, showing the motive to target me in the ways in which I have already proven, in which the federal government engaged in an ongoing investigation, listening and witnessing my exposure, are witnessing the truth that I speak about everything. I have no reason to lie. I have no interest in wasting my life on fables and tales. That's what the demon-possessed are consumed with. Okay, the entity is engaging in a pattern of conduct, and everyone that acted with this hitman and continuously acts with this hitman that is obsessed with murdering me wants to see, let me be very, very clear. This demon wants to see blood flow away from my body, wants to see me lifeless, wants to see me expired. That's how much this demon despises me. This is a demon-possessed person who was gang stalking where she lives in her apartment with an entire apartment complex, who represent the people of the state who also come onto the grounds and surround this apartment complex, obsessively gang stalking me with her. And they all share this level of animosity and hatred, inexplicable for a mother and also inexplicable for strangers. These are the demon possessed who are collectively engaged in stalking me together. Okay, the entity is doing so while I am documenting it, and that is speaking to the fact that justice requires that those who are subject to federal prison, those who are subject to mental asylums, such as gang stalking me in your apartment all day long and stalking with amplified noise all day long and continuously doing so even while you're being documented for that very mentally demented behavior for also no legitimate reason. Even if I did do something to you, you wanted to seek revenge on me. To stalk with noise speaks to a mental illness that you suffer from. That's weird. To pace around in a manner that is malicious. Okay, these are actually demons who are walking around, and everything that they're doing is to monitor another person. You are aware of their mental illness. And this is that which is closeted mental illness. And I'm speaking the truth about the threat to national security. And it's not just the demon-possessed population that varies in education level, race and ethnicity, languages. Linguistics is not a barrier. And also income brackets. In the suburbs in San Diego, in the so-called ghetto, as I've said, in San Bernardino, California, Rialto, California. Okay, from there to there is no ceasing the pattern of conduct. Okay, while I am on the Los Angeles freeway, passing by Mulholland Drive, the fake sun remains directly over the top of my head while I'm in my vehicle as I capture it in images through the sunroof of my vehicle. Okay, the entity that is gang stalking are of celebrity status. Okay, they are politicians. This is no respecter of persons. This is a statewide P.O.C. And while it sits idle, not moving, directly contrasted with moving as I'm on a freeway in Los Angeles, a wealth of documentation pre-existing, returning to Ontario where the fake sun sits all day long. That is how you know an elderly population is obsessed with everything concerning me, including this hitman who is a delusional psychopath with multiple personalities. All of them are hostile to me because they are her demons, that she is fully complicit. She has submitted to these demons, and they have inspired her to engage in egregious criminal acts that are also going to come out when I am prosecuting her for gang stalking me and conspiring to murder me, and being a disgusting, incestuous sex offender in doing so. All right. So that is relative to and related to and relevant to the ongoing amplified noise inside of this apartment. And so at 1:45 p.m., this is amplified audible activity while I'm walking around, moving around inside of the kitchen. As I walk back toward the living room at 1:52 p.m., again, it occurs again. I do put my headphones back on. The entity that is not going out of its way to engage in criminal activity that I'm going to document. Okay, that's speaking to, again, the unprepared and, inept defendant. Okay. But while you are stalking with impossible light activity, that is documentation of psychological torture that companies and the entity itself are going to be penalized for. And it's going to equal damages. It's going to equal years in prison. It is within an ongoing pattern of conduct. It is no small offense. It is within what is a series of offenses, which is within a ceaseless, ongoing offense of gang stalking. So you're talking about an ongoing incremental accumulation of what is a maintenance of an environment that is psychologically harmful. So while I have on headphones and the entity doesn't do things such as having the engineer light sweeping east and west across Tracy Banks' ceiling like I documented for over 3 hours yesterday, March 4th, 2025, as I am documenting the entity gang stalking with the police, which exposes them to federal prison. And if you're already exposed to federal prison, you're going to prison for even longer. The more that I document, the more time you're getting, period. So the entity is engaging in this method of criminally interfering with quiet enjoyment. And so while I'm listening to headphones and speaking to the fact that that is not underway today, okay, the entity maintained stationary engineer light, however, on a cloudy day, on the same east living room wall adjacent to the front door, along the ceiling. I documented it. It's not sunlight. It's the evidence. The same gang stalking is underway, but the entity refraining from the circus-like environment, which is nothing other than evidence, where a whole bunch of demon-possessed people who never wanted anyone to know that fact about them and their mental illness and their perverted practices while they engage in lifestyles of witchcraft and targeting people who do not know Satan like they do. And they know who people are who serve Christ like me, because the demons on them are targeting me. And that compels a human being with demons on them to stalk me. Hence, obsession by strangers who are indeed gang stalking. Okay, they're going to be in courts and they're going to be identified with their government names, first, middle, last. Okay, and so there is no anonymity, there's no ambiguity, there's no equivocation here. It is unequivocal, in other words, what the entity is doing and all the ways in which it does it. This is not the first time I've been documenting. You have a whole armor. Okay, I'm already armed with a body of evidence. When I'm speaking to everything that I identify, you are already aware of it. You can look it up because I provided an entire prosecutorial Rolodex, if you will, in order to look up what it is that I'm referring to, because I have a body of evidence, a playlist, an ongoing running tab of examples regarding what it is the entity is committing, and the preceding examples of the same exact P.O.C, stalking with light, stalking with amplified noise, and stalking me in the path. And that's all you're doing at an apartment complex. And this is the unprecedented basis to prosecute American citizens in this country, where they are not exercising constitutional rights. They're maliciously stalking and monitoring, engaging in surveillance with the government. And it is speaking to the American government, which is unfortunately exploiting the Constitution, which is also, again, headline news. But you are under no circumstances protected under this Constitution. And I have pointed out the ways in which this is what the entity seeks to appear as under the Constitution. These are the laws that they're exploiting, and this is the reality. And that's exactly what the P.O.C provides. And they're going to be prosecuted based on reality, not the illusion that they exist and operate under. Okay, and the entity is gang stalking on an ongoing basis, but with regard to amplified noise, because I'm documenting AVANATH Capital Management, who was a gang stalking third-party company to be civilly and criminally prosecuted, while its residents and employees and the entity itself acts with the population that remains, keeps presence around me, while psychological torture via amplified noise, etc., remains underway inside of the apartment. So this is 1:45 and 1:52 p.m. as I move around in the kitchen and then return to the living room couch. 7:15 p.m. This is when I remove headphones, one of my headphones from my ears, where I'm able to hear, and the demon possessed who are obsessed with me. Under the fake sun, it's not a coincidence that amplified noise occurs at the same time I remove my headphones. That is literally the pattern of conduct of stalking with activity with simultaneity to my movement. Where engineered light is already a proven fact, where stalking under a fake sun is already a proven fact, where gang stalking vicariously with the government that is monitoring me here and stalking me here at Woodside Senior Apartments is already a proven fact. And at 7:15 p.m., when I take one of my headphones out, specifically, I'll be very detailed, as I remove my right headphone from my ear, it's an earbud, with simultaneity to doing that, amplified noise coming from the ceiling above. This is in reference to the stalker remaining in unit number 55, who was stalking by residents, license 5WUB715, who immediately commences what sounds as though you're walking, and that's creating amplified noises as though you're pressing through, cracking through walls in the ceiling. I've documented this on video and on podcast before. It is audible activity, and the engineered light, it's P.O.C, that an entity is monitoring me in concert with, and this entity is acting while Tracy Banks remains in the path at 7:15 p.m. This is a psychopath. The hitman is in her room, listening to all the demons in her mind, while the demon is above me in the living room, and Tracy Banks is gang stalking, psychologically torturing me and targeting me while hiding her face in her bedroom and doing so. This is a psychopath that's going to be prosecuted. And while she is the entity and is in her bedroom in relevant position, gang stalking while this is underway. And this amplified pacing was simultaneity to removing my headphones, which the obsessed demons are aware of, occurs from 7:15 to approximately 7:21 p.m. Where I am removing my headphones, and as I do so, this is where the amplified noise is occurring directly above my head. It is very targeted, not only based on the supernatural occurrence of amplified noise. But literally the location of the sound, it's precise with regard to being directly above my person where I am on the couch in the living room. All right, that's identified as stalking with audible noise. You're also stalking, as stalking is a term of art with regard to federal group stalking and monitoring. Stalking is that which is also occurring with simultaneity, where you are following with noise. You are stalking with noise. All right. You are also stalking me with noise, where the noise is focused on my physical location. These are all the tactics of demons. And it's accomplishing monitoring. And it's always happening in the engineered light. Okay, and that's identifying people who are stalking you as a population and they don't want it to be known. It's a secret mission. It's a secret method of targeting, and it's not a secret anymore. So this is ongoing inside of the apartment, and I want to document that 7:15 through 7:21. So this is prolonged engagement and ongoing amplified noise. This is a demon that is targeting with the demon Tracy Banks, who returns to the apartment to ceaselessly engage in federal group stalking and monitoring me with impunity. While this hitman knows that she's been identified and she is anticipating literally being arrested by the feds, being prosecuted, and this psychopath, in the face of all this evidence, is still going to sit in a court and is going to resort to crying, going to resort to making up fables, which are not going to stand when you ask her questions. She is not intellectually sophisticated. She's not very intricate with her thought processes at all. This is a person that relies on manipulation. This is a person that relies on people to gang up against another with her, and she doesn't have any. This demon possessed person doesn't have any of these devices in federal court. So you're going to witness a meltdown. You're going to witness what is going to be a very It's like an accident that you're watching, you're witnessing, and it's like, oh my goodness, I don't want to watch that, but you can't turn your head away. It's going to be like that, but much, much worse, because this is a wicked conduct that she is embarrassed to be exposed for, and there will be no avoiding it. There will be no putting it off on something else. There will be no making it look like it's something else. There will be no laughter that will make it seem like, oh, someone's exaggerating, someone's making it up. This is a witch that's going to be openly exposed and prosecuted for criminal activity, not just practicing witchcraft. All right, so it's 8:17 p.m. This is documentation of psychological torture that is underway by AVANATH Capital Management, and doing so in concert with the entity that resides at the unit, doing so in concert with the whole population. So the entity is obsessively stalking as a city. They just drive in and out of the property. They park their vehicles in parking spots. They sit around listening to what I'm doing in the unit, monitoring what I'm doing on my devices. The entity just maintaining an ongoing schedule of pacing in and out of the property, while the demons themselves that live here are just maintaining presence, maintaining the elements of monitoring together. All right, and I've already spoken to what the entity is doing in the sky space, maintaining aerial surveillance. This is what's underway, while I am one person merely documenting what it is that I am capable of doing, which is that which I am perceiving, that which I'm able to see and hear, and that which is also evidence of psychological torture tactics, which is relevant to how much damages you're going to compensate me for. While you sought to psychologically harm me in order to more efficiently murder me, you're going to compensate me with damages for that. Damages that are intended to punish and devastate that third-party company. Okay, it is currently 8:18 p.m. on Wednesday, March 5th, 2025. The P.O.C. is ceaselessly underway, of course. This is P.O.C.